Okay, so this week we are diving into, well, port strikes. Not exactly, a topic that screams excitement, right? But trust me on this one because it's surprisingly fascinating, especially when you see how it all connects to things like, what you're going to be seeing on the shelves this holiday season. And even bigger than that, how it kind of reveals the whole, like, power dynamics of negotiation, wondered how a strike at just a few ports could actually impact your holiday shopping. Turns out it's a lot more connected than you might think. So basically, we've got this standoff happening right now between the International Longshoremen's Association, that they're the union for all those dock workers, and, port management.
And the timing of this whole thing couldn't be, well, more intense, I guess, because we're just weeks away from when the whole holiday shopping season kicks off. Mm-hmm. And this strike, which officially started a couple of weeks ago, is really about two big things: wages and then the whole issue of automation.
And, speaking of wages, it seems like the union came out swinging, right? Demanding a 77% raise. I mean, that's a bold move. So, what's the thinking behind such a huge increase?
Well, yeah, it definitely gets your attention, right? Basically, the union is saying that this is what they need to kind of make up for years of these, tiny raises that haven't really kept up with, the cost of living, especially with inflation and everything hitting everyone's wallets pretty hard these days.
So it's kind of like they're using this critical time when retailers are scrambling to kind of, assert their leverage, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the timing is strategically perfect.
Yeah.
Striking right when retailers are desperate to get all that holiday stuff on the shelves. It puts massive pressure, not just on the shipping companies, but on, everyone involved in these negotiations. Plus, there's another layer to this whole thing. The shipping industry, just between 2020 and 2023, they made a lot of profit. We're talking $400 billion. Billion. With a B.
Wow.
And so the union is saying, hey, we're the ones doing the actual work, often dangerous work. We deserve a bigger slice of that pie.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point. So where does President Biden fit into all of this?
Well, Biden, he's in a tricky spot. Because on the one hand, he's always been pro-labor, right? But a strike like this, if it drags on, it could be a real hit to the economy. He decided not to use that Taft-Hartley Act, the one that would force these workers back on the job. So that was a clear signal that he supports, collective bargaining, letting the unions do their thing.
So it's a tightrope walk, right? Trying to support the workers without, completely tanking the economy.
Exactly. Instead of coming in strong, he's taking more of a, strategic approach, I would say. Behind the scenes, you've got folks like Buttigieg, the transportation secretary, and Julie Su, the labor secretary. They're constantly talking to both sides, trying to nudge them towards some kind of agreement.
So it's publicly he's showing solidarity with the workers, but behind closed doors, he's also working to get those ports moving again. What tactics is he using to actually apply pressure?
One of the big ones is this whole price gouging issue. Biden has been very clear that he won't let companies use this situation as an excuse to jack up prices. So that's a clear message to those shipping companies. We're watching you. Plus, he keeps hammering home how much damage this strike could do to the economy, to those supply chains, if it keeps going. It's like he's saying, look, we're all in this together. Let's find a solution.
It sounds like a really delicate balancing act.
Oh, it absolutely is. But it seems like that pressure is working, at least to some degree. Both sides, they feel the urgency, and that's led to some pretty intense negotiating, I would say.
Okay, so we've got this, high-stakes game of chicken happening. The holidays are creeping closer. What finally, broke the tension? Did Biden's, nudging actually work?
It definitely had an impact, I think both sides knew that time was running out, and not just because of, the holidays and everything, but every day that those ports are shut down, the economic fallout gets worse. Remember how we talked about those holiday shipments that retailers sent out way back in June?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to imagine what those warehouses must look like right now, huh? Just mountains of holiday decorations and toys just stuck there.
Yeah, like a logistical nightmare, right?
Exactly.
And a long strike would mean those carefully timed shipments, the ones that are supposed to arrive right when shoppers are ready to buy, totally thrown off. We could see those, festive displays replaced with out-of-stock signs just as people start their holiday shopping.
Yeah, not exactly the best way to spread holiday cheer, right? So what was the compromise? Did they actually find a, middle ground?
They did, but it wasn't easy. The tentative agreement includes a raise of $4 per hour for every year of the 6-year contract.
Okay, so a pretty decent jump from those initial offers, but obviously not the 77% the union first asked for. A classic case of meet in the middle.
Exactly. I mean, that's what negotiation is all about, right? It's about finding that solution that, might not be perfect for either side, but it stops things from getting worse.
Yeah.
And lets them both, move on. But there's a catch.
There's always a catch. What is it?
This tentative agreement, it still has to be voted on, ratified by the actual union members. So it's not a done deal until the people it impacts the most, the workers, until they have their say.
Right, because they're the ones on the ground doing the work. It makes sense that their voices need to be heard. But what happens if they vote it down? If they say no deal, are we back to square one?
Basically, yeah. And that would create a whole new wave of, uncertainty. Not just for the holidays, but for the economy in general, really.
Yeah.
This whole thing has really highlighted how much we depend on this very intricate system of global shipping.
It's kind of like we're holding our breath, waiting to see if those cargo ships start moving again. But this situation also touches on something much bigger, don't you think? That whole tension between automation and its impact on jobs. It's like we're, at this crossroads, right? Mm-hmm. Like you've got this push for more efficiency, cutting costs, and that usually means more automation, more robots, all that.
Right.
But at the same time, you have real people, workers, who are worried that, technology is going to take their jobs.
Yeah, it's that classic dilemma.
Exactly.
And we're seeing it play out more and more in all kinds of industries. This port strike is just one example, really.
So how do we deal with that? Like, can we actually embrace these technological advances without leaving a bunch of people jobless?
That's the question, isn't it? The million-dollar question.
Right.
And honestly, there's no easy answer.
Right.
But I think this strike has at least, got people talking about things like, better training programs for workers, some kind of safety net for people who lose their jobs because of technology.
Right, right.
And, a system where when automation does bring in all that extra profit, it's shared more fairly. It can't just be the people who own the robots.
Right, exactly. So it's not just about, oh no, jobs are going away. It's also about, okay, but what new opportunities are being created because of this technology?
Yep.
And how do we get people ready for those new opportunities?
I think that's a conversation we all need to be part of. Not just the politicians or the CEOs. Consumers have power here too. We can support the companies, the policies that are trying to do automation in a way that's ethical, that's sustainable.
So as we wait to see what happens with this agreement, what does all this mean for, the average person listening right now? Could this strike, even if it gets resolved, still affect how much we're paying for things, especially with the holidays coming up?
It's definitely a possibility. It's hard to say for sure what the impact on prices will be, but some experts are saying we can see prices go up, especially, as we get closer to the holidays and demand for everything just shoots up.
So maybe stock up on the cranberry sauce earlier this year, just to be safe.
Right. Better safe than sorry.
But really, I think it just highlights how important it is to, pay attention.
Do your research, compare prices. Don't be afraid to think outside the box a little when you're shopping.
Yeah, and maybe get a head start on that holiday shopping if you can.
Always a good idea.
But I feel like this whole strike, it also kind of hints at a bigger trend, don't you think? Like this surge in, labor activism, workers demanding more, maybe a shift in the balance of power between, employees and employers.
Yeah.
Yeah, things are definitely shifting. We're seeing more and more workers joining unions, going on strike in all sorts of industries.
Yeah.
And their demands are pretty clear. They want better pay. They want safer working conditions, and they want a voice. They want to be part of the decisions that affect their lives. The outcome of this port strike and others like it, it's going to have a big impact for a long time, I think. It's a crucial moment for labor, and I don't think we've seen the end of it yet.
Wow. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are the key takeaways for our listeners? What do we want them to remember?
Well, first, I hope they come away with a better understanding of how, interconnected everything is.
Right.
Like a strike at just a handful of ports can actually have ripple effects that, you feel all the way back home.
Yeah.
It impacts what you can buy, how much it costs, everything.
It really makes you appreciate those cargo ships and the people who keep them moving, doesn't it?
For sure. And it also shows why it's so important to stay informed, stay engaged. Don't just be a passive consumer. Be an active citizen. Learn about the issues, ask questions, and support the policies that promote fair labor practices, a sustainable economy. That kind of stuff matters.
Well said. And for those who are, as fascinated by this as we are, we've got links to all the sources we used for this deep dive in our show notes so you can dig in and learn more.
We always love it when you guys geek out with us.
Absolutely. And here's one last thought to chew on. We've talked a lot about automation, right?
Yeah.
So as technology keeps changing the workforce, what role are we going to play in shaping that future? Will it be a future where, technology and humans actually work together, thrive together? Or are we on a path to more conflict, more tension? It's something to think about. Maybe the next time you're at the store, browsing those hopefully well-stocked shelves.
Yeah, that's something to ponder.
That's it for this week's deep dive. Until next time, stay curious.